If you try to name all the nutritional benefits in cauliflower, you'd probably never get to the end of the list. From being good for your brain to being high in antioxidants, vitamin K, vitamin C, the list goes on. The only problem is that this can be quite an expensive crop. I remember some Sundays just not having cauliflower in the stir fry because it was just so expensive. You couldn't buy it every single week. And even if it's not a peak period, it still maintains quite a hefty price. But what if you could grow your own cauliflower right at home, 100% organic, in a container? Let's talk about it. Hello everyone, thank you all so much for joining in. This is Dylan from the Trini Gardener channel, and I'm super excited for this video because we're going to be talking about one of my favorite crops to grow. It's a crop that honestly at the beginning I thought was very daunting, like, scary, what if I grow it and, it doesn't work out. But the difficulty in growing cauliflower is definitely exaggerated among common conversations with people on different forums, even on the internet, that it almost sounds like, oh no, this dead crop that, only a super professional gardener could grow, but anybody could grow this crop. You just need a few simple things, and that's what we're going to be talking about: growing your nice organic cauliflower right in your backyard in a container. Let's do it. Now the first thing you're going to need is a container. More and more these concrete buckets, these construction buckets, are becoming my favorite container to go to for growing any kind of brassica, whether that be cabbage, broccoli, cauliflower, and other things as well, obviously. Because they're so cheap, they're accessible anywhere. Any hardware is going to have them. Even those people that sell like breeze and detergent, that kind of thing on the highway and whatnot, they always have. I think it's usually like $25 for a container for a bucket. And those are, I mean, if you've ever worked with a construction bucket, you know how strong they are. People beat concrete, also those things, and we're not doing that. So they're going to last you pretty much a lifetime. When your container, you're going to want to put drainage holes. So at the bottom here, you can take like a half-inch drill bit, or even if you have like a hot knife or just a hot piece of iron or something, and you make some holes at the bottom, right? Don't be afraid to put plenty drainage holes under there. Your dirt is not going to fall out as much as you think it is. So you're making sure that when you water your cauliflower, that the water is not going to stay there, because cauliflower can get root rot very, very easily. So you want to be careful about that, that the water that you put into your container can go all the way through, moisten your soil, and then leave. You don't want anything settling in your container. Now, regarding how much sunlight to give your cauliflower, that's a little bit tricky. Cauliflower aren't really a summer plant, and of course for us in Trinidad, if you're not a summer plant, then you can't be a Trinidadian plant originally. All right, cauliflower normally is grown around times when temperatures are cooler in temperate countries. So you grow them like in spring, you grow them, there are fall plants as well. Not so much summer. Doesn't mean that they can't grow, they just have a harder time. Now in Trinidad, luckily for us, over the course of time and with technology, we have varieties that just have adapted to our climate, and they do grow in Trinidad. So definitely you can grow here, but you need to make sure that you have the right variety. And what can happen is you can go into a seed store, you see some nice seeds, cauliflower, and then you have, people may not even know, and they sell you a seed that's really not designed for Trinidad, but they maybe got it on sale or something in the shipment, and they sell it to you, and the cauliflower doesn't work because maybe that variety is not designed for our kind of hot temperature that we have in Trinidad. So your best bet is to go into a greenhouse, just a seedling place, and they will normally have a variety of cauliflower. Normally, they'll have a variety of cauliflower that will be adapted for Trinidad, so that way you're not going to have any problems with your cauliflower. Because what can happen is if you have a cauliflower that is not designed for our kind of hot temperatures, they're going to bolt, right? I've talked about bolting before. Bolting is just a process by which plants like brassicas and even like your cabbage, your lettuce, broccoli, where they stop sort of existing in that flat way that they are, where you have the leaves and then the head, and they start going up and up and up towards the sun. They produce a flower. Those flowers have seeds. When the buds start to dry, you can harvest the seeds, and that's how you get your seeds for almost any of these brassica plants. Now, regarding your vegetables, you don't actually want your vegetables to bolt unless you're planning to get seeds. If you want to eat that vegetable, bolting is a bad thing. It doesn't have to be a bad thing, but if you're planning to eat that cauliflower, then bolting is a bad thing. And what will happen is your plant will bolt if it's not prepared for the hot temperatures that we have in Trinidad. I like to give my cauliflower some afternoon shade. So they get full sun from the morning, from the time that sun rises, 6:30. They get full sun until about maybe 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. and then that's it. They're in a position here with the building, based on my situation, that I know that they're getting at least about how many hours is that? That's like 7 6 7 hours of sunlight. Because you do, I mean, these big leaves, they're not here for style, they're here to gather sunlight, right? So you do want them to gather sunlight, but you don't want your plant to feel stressed with too much of sun. So if you're somewhere temperate and you have the right temperature, you're like, like it's in full spring, or just early fall, like early autumn, that's fine. Give your plant full sun. This is what the cauliflower is going to need. Full sun. In Trinidad, full sun comes with that extra scorching heat that I've talked about, and I just don't feel comfortable giving my cauliflowers that kind of heat on them, because they can't bolt on a day that, if I forget to water them, the roots get kind of dry, they get sort of heated up, then the plant itself becomes stressed, the leaves start to droop, and then all of a sudden the plant that was going so well, within a matter of hours, it will just decide, like, okay, I can't survive anymore. That's how fast that decision is made by the plant. That's part of the natural cycle of the plant. So be careful with your sunlight. Give it around that 6 hours to 7 hours maximum of sunlight. This is what I have experienced, and you should be fine with that. Okay, so here we are at the little potting up station. I have my cauliflower seedling. Right, you can get these for like $1 in most nurseries, maximum $2. Don't pay any more than that for a seedling of cauliflower. Inside my container, which, as I told you, is just a normal concrete bucket. This is a mixture of mainly two things: wood compost and cow manure, well cured cow manure. This cow manure has been curing for almost 6 months now, right? Minimum, as I always say, minimum of 4 to 5 months for cow manure for it to cure really well. In my opinion, that's just what has worked best for me, right? So I'll just dig my planting hole, right? I know the normal, you see little bits chunks of wood here. This is from the wood compost, and to be honest, I like to have these chunks in there because it does help with aeration in the container itself, right? I don't want the material in the container to compact. So having things like this is going to keep nice pockets of air, and this as well is going to hold on to moisture. This is humus, right? Okay. Inside of my growing hole, the hole where I'm putting the seedling, I'm going to put a usual suspect, something I talk about all the time, which is worm castings. Really good organic material to put in, right? This worm manure basically, right? And this is the thing, organics is all about building the soil, right? Inside of this container as well, this is something very, very optional. It's something that you all have seen me use a few times. It is $75, so it's a bit of an investment. Very, very optional. You do not need something like this to have good, healthy cauliflower. It just is something that I like to use mainly for this thing. I don't use it for the NPK, even though there is NPK, of course, from my NPK, my fertilizer tutorial. The 3, what does it stand for? Exactly, it stands for nitrogen. The 4, phosphorus, and the 6 for potassium. Okay, N, nitrogen, P, phosphorus, and the K, potassium, right? And of course there is other things here as well. You see, you have calcium, magnesium, sulfur, all of that, amazing. But I am more interested in these things here. These are beneficial bacteria. Okay, these are what you call like rhizobacteria, and they help the plant itself on a way that has nothing to do with the actual nutrients that you're giving to the plant, but rather just helping the plant with the ability to take up nutrients. Because what these bacteria will do, these are root colonizing bacteria, is that they will attach to a root, and then they create colonies. Within no time at all, they could have like 1 million of these bacteria developing networks in the soil. So you have your root going here, but then you have roots of bacteria forming lines across your bacteria, and those lines or those networks help the plant to pull up more moisture, helps it to pull up more nutrients. So that's really why I use this this product here. Again, very, very optional, right? And a lot of these beneficial bacteria and fungi, they are present in your compost, right? If you make some nice homemade compost like I've shown you, right? The link for that is going to be up. but this is just going to be an extra. This is just from the experts, very, very optional. Don't go and spend $75 thinking that it is a magic thing. It's not magic, it's just that it does help with the plant, but it's not the only thing that will help, right? The cow manure and the wood compost and just your normal green waste compost is going to be more than enough. This is just a little added boost if you can get it. If you can't, no worries at all. Okay, so I'm just going to take my seedling. I'm doing this with one hand, right? I actually like to plant my seedling fairly deep when it comes to cauliflower. It just helps to support the stem a lot better. It doesn't have to be, right? And I think yeah, I know this grosses out some people. People have told me in the comments, but once I see this in the soil, it just lets me know that I'm doing a good job. The organics is working because the worms are happy to be in this container. If I go into this entire container, can't find any worm, then I have to ask a question. Is this container going to be conducive to life? Is my plant going to be happy inside here? Right, good. I just sort of mold up the plant there, make sure it's nice and supported. There you go. Right, and there we go, all planted in. Now, very, very important, do not ever transplant seedlings and not water them. Okay, watering your seedling as soon as you transplant it is going to help avoid transplant shock, which is where the seedling is unable to recover from being transplanted from where it was to the new location. And if the seedling just doesn't have that amount of moisture, because remember, it's still a baby, right? It's just a baby, so it needs to have that water right there around the root ball to make sure that it is ready to start growing for you. But you do have to baby it a bit. And something else that you can do is just not give it direct sunlight. Like, don't put it out in the sun for about a day or two. Just allow it that time to just get acquainted to its new environment, and then you can start to put it out in the sun, maybe like a half day, and then give it the proper sunlight afterwards. When you maybe give it a week of like babying it, giving it enough water, giving it like a bit of shade, bit of sun, bit of shade, bit of sun, before giving it that full 6 to 7 hours of sunlight that I either have already talked to you about or I'm going to talk to you about. When it comes to fertilization, this is super important for your cauliflower to get that nice big head of cauliflower. This, after the variety, this is the next most important thing with your cauliflower. You want to make sure that your cauliflower from the get-go has all of the nutrients that it needs to survive. The main nutrient at the beginning is going to be nitrogen. That's why you're going to want to use a good rich compost like I've showed you, mixing that compost with different types of compost. Now, of course, I've showed you that I use wood compost, but with cauliflower, I wouldn't just use pure wood compost. You need to have some animal manure in there, some well-cured animal manure, talking about at least 3 months curing for your cow manure, at least 4 to 5 months curing for your chicken manure, and even longer if it's possible, to make sure that your manure is really well cured, so that when you use that on your plant, it's not going to burn your plants, especially if it's chicken manure, but it's going to be a nice slow release fertilizer. And what I even do is that every 3 weeks to maybe a month, if I'm pushing it, I reapply a mixture of some, you can use pot and mix, but I just use normal compost, my vegetable compost, my green waste compost more or less, and my animal manure. I use cow manure mostly these days. That's just what I happen to have. Doesn't mean it's better than anything else, it's just what I happen to have. And I reapply that just around the base. It's called like a top dressing, just under the foliage there, to make sure that my plant always has sufficient nutrients all the way along, to make sure that at no point, because these are very heavy feeders, you don't want your plant to ever feel like it's lacking nitrogen or it's lacking any of those other nutrients that it needs. Of course, it's the leaves that gather that sunlight for you, that produce that energy for your plant, of course. But you need to have that nutrition base for these plants to be able to produce that head. Now, with regards to watering your cauliflower, I personally water these plants once every day, right? The mix that I have is something that retains water, yes, but cauliflower is just such a heavy feeder that I find that, you know, it's not like a pepper plant or even like a tomato plant. Like, I find that these suck water up so much. And especially right now, like when I'm filming this video, it's in March. And right now the days are so hot that I honestly have tried to leave it, you know, like to water today, not water the next day, and then try to water on the, so 2 days after. And on the second day after, like I do see the leaves starting to droop. And I want to avoid my plant ever being stressed, because that lack of water and that stress can also cause my cauliflower to bolt, and I don't want that to happen. So I want to make sure that the water is nice and even. Something that will help with this is mulching. Just around the base of your plant is going to help keep that moisture inside. It's also going to help keep the roots of your plant nice and cool, to avoid bolting again, right? I know I'm mentioning bolting a lot, but it's an important thing to consider with cauliflower, because I do get the question sometimes. I've gotten it a few times on Instagram and on TikTok, why is my cauliflower growing up, or why is my cabbage or my lettuce growing upwards, or why is my cauliflower not forming a head? And most of the times it's because your plant is stressed, and it's stressed for one of a few reasons. One can be lack of watering or improper watering. Now, you don't obviously want to overflood your plant, but if you have that right kind of soil type, you have your drainage hose at the bottom, it's almost impossible to overwater your plant, because even if you have too much of water, the plant is just the container is going to let that water drain out. The soil type is allowing that water to pass through. It's not staying, it's not an overly clay kind of soil full of organic matter that's going to allow for those spaces for the water to pass through. So you're going to be fine with that, but you do want to make sure that your cauliflower is always nice and happy, and those leaves are nice, feeling thick and perky all the time. If you ever see a cauliflower plant like drooping, or the leaves feeling kind of like thin, then you need to check on the watering, and also make sure that you have good amount of nutrients in your cauliflower plants. And the last thing I want to talk about is something called blanching. Blanching is basically when, and I'll bring you all closer to see this, but blanching is when you take the leaves of your cauliflower and you just sort of use them as a shield. You just raise them up and you cover the head of the cauliflower. And you can take any kind of fabric or any string that you have and just tie it around. And the purpose of that, it's really for two things. The first one is that it's for aesthetics. You want to make sure that your cauliflower stays nice and white. And to do that, you want to make sure that the sun doesn't overly pound down on the cauliflower. So blanching is going to allow the plant to continue living, continue photosynthesizing, getting energy from the sun, while not having that sun bake your cauliflower plant. Because if you've ever seen cauliflower in the grocery, they usually don't have it, but it can happen where you see cauliflower that's kind of like brown or just kind of discolored, like a yellow looking cauliflower. Usually cauliflower isn't bad, it's just that it doesn't look nice to eat, because it's not nice and white the way we're expecting to see cauliflower that we're paying money for. The next thing is that covering it can, like, I've never had too much of this issue, but I have heard people talk about insects eating their cauliflower, and also like birds coming and just pecking around the cauliflower. So just to avoid that from happening, if you do use the leaves, it's almost as if nature knew that we're going to need this, so that's why the leaves are there. And we just have to do the next step, cover it up, tie it around with the leaves, and then you're going to be fine with your cauliflower. And that's honestly pretty much it with your cauliflower. Now, I know it's a learning process. I'm also still learning how to carry on my cauliflowers, and this what to do to make it better. This is honestly what has worked for me, what has produced heads for me in my home garden. And I really hope that you enjoyed this video, but more importantly, I hope that you learn something from this video. I hope that you're going to go and try to grow your own homegrown cauliflower, organic, 100% organic, and be self-sustainable and feed yourselves and your family. And remember, if you know someone who would be interested in growing more organic food, organic cauliflower, and anything else for themselves and their family, then share this video with them, share the channel with them, and help them to grow more organic food home, so that they can live a healthier life, a more self-sustainable life, and eat as organic as possible. Remember, you can also check us out on Instagram, TikTok, and on Facebook, where we're always posting content from the channel, from coming up from the garden. And remember to share any videos or pictures of things in your garden. If things that you even want to just ask us questions about, no problem at all, just send us a message. I always respond. And remember, once again, this has been Dylan with the Trini Gardener channel, reminding you to get up and get growing. Take care.